For several months now, the shaper is making weird knocking sounds that I really don't like. I won't go into too much detail for this fix here, because I already explained in a previous video, and of course link to this video here in description. And in this video I also explained that I couldn't fix the shaper because I needed a piece of bronze that I didn't have. But that's where I was contacted by Peter, and he did send me a piece of bronze, and of course also lots of other very useful things. So Peter, thank you again, and apologize that it took so long. So I suppose nothing can stop me anymore to fix this thing, and I think that today is the day, because yesterday it wasn't. But before I start, first I would like to answer some questions that I had in last week's video, where I made a spacer bar that has to fit between two rails of the tramway. And one of the questions was, why is one portion of the threaded part longer than the other one? Now I don't have this spacer bar here anymore because it's already installed, but with these pieces of something here I'm sure I can explain. Of course, to install a bar it has to pass in holes. We just imagine that 1000 millimeter from here there is another rail, and if we have to place a bar between two, we can give it an angle to pass over the other rail, go into the hole, and then install the nut on this side. Of course there's always already a nut on this side. But the part between two pieces of rail are of course also in a switch, like in this case, to keep them in line, two rails, right? And the other two go here. We use fish plates with, in this case, 4 holes. Fish plates both sides of the rails, and of course also here. The total thickness of the rail and the two fish plates doesn't allow us to give an angle on this bar. So what we have to do is take off all the nuts and then pass to the rail from this side, and then here we can install a nut and then pass to the rail on the other side. But if there's not enough thread, we cannot put the nut far enough to reach the other side to put the nut on this side. So one portion of thread is longer, just to allow the thing to be installed, pass all the way through, install the second nut inside the rail, put the bar in place, tighten these two nuts, check the gauge of course, and then install exterior nut on both sides.
J'en fais les deux, hein, ça c'est sûr. Hein. C'est mon cul.
Aujourd'hui lui travailler. Il était à la CTV. Lundi, il viendra pour me l'installer parce qu'il faut que avec mon plan, c'était quand même pas loin de 50 € par mois plus la commission sur chaque.
Et donc on paye depuis longtemps et que ça ne va plus quoi. C'est dingue. T'as été voir sur la presse?
On ne reçoit plus rien. À mon avis, on n'est pas branché. J'ai encore essayé l'appareil tantôt. Et tandis que le nouveau système, tu as juste une commission d'1,60 € par transaction. C'est tout.
Ça va, c'est bien.
Voilà.
On va bouger, on va le laisser passer. Mais bouge un peu ici. C'est là que c'est important. Ouais, ça va, c'est bien. On va le laisser passer.
Of course, whatever spacer bar could also work very well if the threaded portion has the same length both sides but just a little bit longer. No problem at all. But all I did was to copy the original. And there were also a few questions about the steam tram, the Royal steam tram, and I made a little mistake in that video. I said train, but of course it is tram, not the same. The plan is of course to make the thing run again, to make it work again, and I'm pretty sure it will attract some people to come and watch it. But in our association, for the moment we have more urgent things to do, like for example take care of the tracks. We have about 3,000 and I don't know how much, more than 3,000 sleepers to renew, to change. So that's a little bit of work. Second point is of course also that to do steam boiler work, it is a very specialized job and we don't have the specialists. Now of course everyone can watch a YouTube video and say he's a specialist, but he's not. These things are dangerous if not well operated. And another important reason is of course also that we have a depot. It's not really a workshop. We don't have the tools to do this job. So specialist job, very expensive and other things to do. So indeed fixing the steam tram, one day we will, but first there's other things to fix. And now let's take the shaper apart. And here's the patient. Now I already cleaned it up a little bit and did a little test fit in the slide of the rocker arm. And the fit is perfect. No play, no binding, just perfect, and that over the whole length of the slide. But the problem is, as expected, here on the crank pin. I took a bunch of measurements here around this crank pin with my tape measurement thing here, and this is cylindric. The pin itself is perfect, so we're not gonna touch this one. And unfortunately I don't have the right measuring tool to check the roundness or the cylindricalness of this hole here. But as you can see, as you can hear, there is movement. So this thing not good anymore. A more or less simple solution could be, of course, to bore this hole out and then make a plug or sleeve and then rebore it to the exact diameter. But I think here is not enough meat left. If we're gonna make a bushing in here, I don't think it's gonna hold. So in my opinion, the best solution will be make a new one. And a piece of bronze that Peter gave me is just a tiny bit too small to cut out a piece to use it this way. I'm gonna lose the corners, but that's not the problem. There's more than enough bronze in here to use it this way. That will work. Let's cut a slice off. A hockey puck, but a big one. Before I start cutting in this thing, maybe it's a good idea to think a little bit the operations of order here. The dimensions are marked on the blackboard and I suppose you can read. Now, what is important? Of course, these two sides here, these two sides, they have to be parallel and spot on. These are the sliding sides in the rocker arm. The thickness of the thing, there is a little bit of play because this is the length of the crank pin. So this one not really critical. The height not critical at all. The width of these oil ports here not really critical. There's just one thing that I have to think a little bit about, is that the oil ports here, they are open to this center hole, but in an angle. So how to figure out how to do this. And then this funnel idea, not critical. Diameter of the holes, not really critical. So for example, if I first square up this block, no problem. And then I make the sliding sides perfect, parallel on sides, exactly the way it should be. And then I start thinking this hole here. That's not really a good idea, because to drill that hole, to be good, I should clamp it in a vise on my two finished surfaces. Maybe I could clamp it this way, but it's better this way. But I don't want to clamp on finished surfaces. That's not a good idea. If, for example, first I drill the oil ports, it could be good, because when I bore the hole, I will not have burrs on the holes here on the inside. But it will be an interrupted cut and it could leave traces inside. So maybe it's better to first make the big boring hole here and then drill the smaller holes and try to deburr it without causing damage on the surface finish inside here. But first let's square up this thing and leave it oversized, and then we will start thinking and do precise work, which is not really a tradition in this workshop. Right, enough blah blah. Let's make this thing look like this one. And in my opinion, to square things up, the best machine to do this is of course the shaper. But this time I think I'm gonna do it on the milling machine, just because I feel like it. I think this is the first time I ever cut bearing bronze. And the surface finish is good. It's not perfect, but it's good. But I think it could be better if I speed up the thing, because of course the cutting speed of bronze is way higher than for steel. Let's give it a try. It is more or less the same. That will do. Just some rough outlines. That's good. Before I started cutting, I made a little bit changes here. So with this stick out, I'm sure now I can make this surface and this surface in one setup. To be sure, it is square. But when I took measurements for this thickness here, should be 30 millimeters, I see there is a problem. My calipers are bouncing around here. I'm not supposed to do this. Which means the top surface and the bottom surface are not parallel. That's not good. As you can see, I took it out of the vise, and when I measure on this side, it is 30 and let's say 25. So here I have to take off 25 100ths. No problem. When I measure the other side, here it is 25 undersize. I reinstalled the part, but this time again in the middle of the vise, and give it a sweep of indicator. And this reads exactly what I see with my calipers. So I think this is gonna work. And here it is. All 6 sides are finished. And I think it starts already to look a little bit like the original one. Except of course the holes in it, but whatever. Now, I'm really glad I managed to save the thickness. These 2 sides were not parallel, and now they are, well, almost. It's just that the thickness is more or less 0.2 of a millimeter less than the original one, so a tiny bit undersized. But I'm pretty sure it will not affect its function, so that will be okay. Right, all that's left to do now is to make a bunch of holes in here. But that will be for next week's video. But before I go, I want to share you Stuart's brand new sticker. So Stuart, thank you very much. If you don't know Stuart, no problem, there's a link to his channel in the description, of course. And Stuart, as you can see, your sticker is on the cheap door.